KJ Walker from Low Poly Models World. And wow, we just need to take a minute to talk about Decentraland because it has come so far. Wow. I mean, we all expected great things, but I think we're all still blown away by the incredible Metaverse Festival that we've just had, which brought some amazing artists to this platform. And also some incredible projects and quests are happening, like the Wonder Quest, led by Alice in Wonderland, amazing musician, artist, performer, DJ, and my team at Low Poly Models have the absolute honor of working with her on the Wonder Quest and creating these monthly quests in Decentraland and concerts and light events, and wow. We are so stoked. It's absolutely amazing. But hey, what we're here to talk about is wearables. There have been a lot of developments on the platform as of late. So without further ado, let's get into making some wearables. So the first thing I'd recommend is heading over to www.docs.decentraland.org. And there you can check out the latest information on wearables, okay? This gets updated, as I mentioned before, as the platform is growing. And you can always find the latest information here in these different sections of wearables overview, creating wearables, publishing wearables, the curation committee, and the editor user guide. You can find some of the reference models down here. Wearables reference models, which opens up this fab folder by Shibu, and in examples you can find a series of different categories, and inside a little demo model which you can open with Blender and study it, figure out how it works, how the weight works, and translate that to your own model. But like I said, what we're going to do today is make a hat, and in here we don't have a hat reference model. So if we do a quick Google for Decentraland GitHub avatar assets, it will come up straight away. Okay, so not tricky to find, and we want to navigate straight to assets, and here we have a series of collections. I'm going to go straight through to the DCL launch collection. I'm going to open up the hat folder, and let's download the DCL hat. And we can take a look at the different file extensions. We've got two PNGs, which are image files, a JSON, which is a code file, and two GLBs, which are 3D models. And the only difference between them is the F and the M. So this stands for a female or a male. And this is because the original avatar system was set up with some differences in body shape between these two default avatars. So for most of the time when we're creating an asset, we're going to be creating two versions of that asset. One that fits a standard female body shape and one that fits a standard male body shape. Obviously this is so not representative of our current culture, and we definitely want to add a lot more categories, or preferably a scalar, so that things aren't as binary, because there's no need for them to be. Let's download both of these, the female hat and also the male hat, in GLB files. Awesome, we've got them here. Okay, so we can open up Blender. I've just got a new scene here, and you can see the buttons that I'm pressing just here in the bottom left hand corner. First of all, let's just delete everything that we've got in the scene, with A to select everything, X to delete, and we'll hit enter or OK. So let's go to File, Import, and we're going to select a GLTF 2.0 in parenthesis GLB or GLTF. And we can navigate through and find our models that we've just downloaded. You can also drag and drop if you don't want to search through your system. And let's import the female version. You'll notice that we have a few different elements here. Let's take a look. we have this, which is an armature, basically a set of bones that will be used to rig the model and control its movement in world, right? It's basically these bones that are controlling that movement. So we're going to have to adapt anything we create to these bones to make sure that it moves in sync with other items. Okay, and aside from the skeleton or armature, we can now go into edit mode with tab, and you'll see that we have a lot of loose geometry here. That's because we imported it as a GLB file. Now we can easily change that by selecting everything with A, going to Mesh, Clean Up, and Merge by Distance. Okay, and now we can do Option or Alt J, and that will remove any triangles that don't necessarily need to be there. We can remove a few more, but it's not absolutely necessary. Okay, so we have a cap here, but as you'll notice, it's looking a little bit funny. There are some bumpy bits, some lines. So let's go to the Object Data Properties, and we will go to Geometry Data and clear Custom Split Normals. That's going to take us right back down to Flat Shading, so we can make that a bit smoother by going right-click, Shade Smooth, and we can adjust the amount of smoothness here in the Normals tab by just increasing the angle. Now you'll notice there are still some areas that look a little bit different. This is because of normals. So each plane has a direction. Let me grab the pencil. I can either face outwards or it could face inwards, say like this. Okay. And what we want is for all our faces to be going outside rather than inside. How do we check that all our planes are facing in the right direction? Easy. We can go up here into Overlays and come all the way down here to Face Orientation and enable this. Okay. And we'll see that some areas are blue and some areas are red. Basically, we want everything to be blue and nothing to be red. And I'm just going to remove these quads here, well, not quads but polygons, because we don't want them. Okay, so the quickest way for us to flip all our normals at once would be to select everything with A and then go Shift N, which will automatically reset the normals. Now it's not a perfect process, so we can go in manually and adjust a few elements here. Let's grab these, do another Shift N, and you'll notice here we've got a little properties panel. If we change and check here, check inside, that will then change the direction in which they're facing. Cool. So let's do the same up here. And any red faces we'll get rid of, or we'll flip the other way. See, this is fine because this is the same plane, but we're not seeing this side of it, we're just seeing the outside. Cool. So now everything's facing the right way. Okay, so now that we have this, how do we customize the look of it, right? Maybe we want to change the hairstyle. Maybe we want to add a different pattern to the hats. We can adjust the hairstyle in any way that we want. Let's look at our materials in here. Now we have two materials, the hat material, which if I select, you'll see here is our hat, and the opposite, which is our hair material. And I can show you that here in the UV editing panel. That is mapped to a very light tone of grey up here, you see. And what happens with this tone of grey is later on, when it goes through the Decentraland engine, it's tinted with different colours, and that's how we can have different hair colours within the metaverse. And it also works the same for facial hair and eye color and a few different things. So mainly we don't want to change that. We want to leave that the way it is. Now the other texture, we do want to change. We want to add something custom. So let's open our shading tab. And we'll zoom in here and zoom out here. Okay, we don't want these two nodes in the middle. So let's get rid of them. Okay, so if we want to make a custom texture for Decentraland, we need to make sure that it's the right size, because the engine only processes certain size values in pixels. So let's create a new document, and we'll make it 512 by 512 pixels. This is a good enough resolution for what we're working with, and it's also, both numbers are powers of 2, which is what we need. So let's drag our little low poly models logo and stick him here in the center. Now let's export this. Now we can pull this into our shader area. Okay, so now we've got our new image texture here. We can get rid of the old one. And we can already see the difference, but we are going to want to make some changes to the way that this is being shown, because the image is being cut at the moment. So let's figure out why that's happening and change it. So back to the UV editing panel, and I'm going to select these faces while in edit mode. And I'm going to go to a frontal view with 1 on the numpad, and we'll see how this is being mapped here. And if we stretch it open, let's turn off proportional editing. If we stretch it and bring it down a bit, we get something that's a bit closer to what we're looking for. Okay, so for a test, let's export this and upload it to the builder and see how it works. Before doing that, we're just going to double check the weights. They should be fine because we downloaded this from a model that's already been uploaded to the Decentraland platform, but things can get broken between the export and the import process and over different versions of Blender as well. So my favorite way to go into weight paint mode is to click on the armature and then the model, and then go to weight paint, and then with the control button you can select different bones and directly see their influence on the model. So here we can see we've got 100% influence on the head, which is perfect, that's exactly what we want, and absolutely no influence from other bones. Okay, the head is moving here because the head bone is parented to the neck bone, and we're moving the neck bone, therefore we're also moving the head bone by default. Okay, but this is exactly what we want for a piece of headgear, is for everything, all the weights, to be on the head bone, which is this top one here, and for the rest of the bones to have absolutely zero influence on the head. Now to export this, we just want to grab the model and then grab the armature and go to File, Export, and we'll export as a GLB, just like we imported it. So what information do we need to include? We need to limit this to selected objects. In this file we don't have any other objects, but this is a good habit to get into if you're working with several different drafts and iterations. We want to have the Y-up transform checked. In the geometry panel, we can either check or not check apply modifiers. It won't make a difference in this case. We do need to check UVs and normals and vertex colors, but nothing else. And in the animation panel, we need the skinning. That's the weight painting, basically the influence that each bone has on each part of the mesh. But we don't need any animation data, and we don't need any shape keys. Okay, so let's export it with those settings. Okay, now we're in the builder, and we can take a look at how our item looks in world. So to do that, we want to come to the Collections tab and create a new collection by clicking on the plus button. So let's create a new collection. Let's call it LPM. Create. Okay, now let's go into our collection and add a new item. Now this is super easy. We have our GLB already made. Let's just drag it and drop it into here. Cool. Now we have to give the engine a bit of information about our wearable so it knows how to process it on the platform. For rarity, let's hit unique, for example, and the category in this case is going to be hat. Okay, now let's hit create. Nice. Now we have two ways in which we can demo our items. Let's have a look at the first way. So you can click on your item and go into edit it. Now, if you remember before, we mentioned the hair, okay? So because the cap is quite tight over the head, it's going to overlap with a lot of hairstyles, which is why we created the cap with its own default hairstyle. Because what we're going to do is come to this section here that says replaces or hides, and overrides, hides, and select hair and save. And what this will do is tell the engine that when an avatar is wearing this item, don't render any hair on the avatar, okay? So we can click here, we can see a few different emotes being performed. We can check that it's following the head, all right, and doing more or less what it should be doing. Okay, so let's have a look at the other way in which we can demo items. We can do that by going in world. So I've gone from collections into this new collection that we just created, and I'm going to click on the three dots up here next to new item and select see in world. Now I'm going to need to connect my digital wallet. So now we're going to come to our digital wallet and we're going to switch from the Ethereum network to the Ropsten test network, okay? And when we're in Ropsten, we can reload the website. Okay, cool. Now we've got our Decentraland avatar here in the lobby, and we can head over to the backpack here and try on our new hat. Let's come here to hats, select it, hit done, and nice, that's working pretty well. So if I try a few different emotes with the number keys, we can see that that's following the armature the way that we want. Now let me just switch gender for a second, just so you can see that it's a unisex item. So we can stick the same hat just because we adjusted the head shape a little bit to make it work for both head shapes. Cool. So there we have our basic low poly models hat. Ta-da! Yeah, nice job. So we have just created our baseball hat. We've tested it in world and it's working pretty well. But what if we want to make a type of hat that is a bit different to a baseball hat? What if we want to make a different shape, a different style? How would we go about doing that? So let's create a collection here and we'll rename it. And let's call this baseball cap. Nice. Now we'll select everything and move it to that collection with the M button. Nice. Now if I hide this collection, we won't see any of it. Now we can create a new collection and we'll call it our new hat. Ooh, new hat. Nice. Okay, and into our new hat, I'm going to import a full avatar model. because that's going to help us double check that our proportions are right and that it sits well on the avatar's body shape. So let's go import GLB. Okay, remember where we had the wearables references? You can find your base models in there. I've got them here already in an avatars folder. Let's grab a base female and we'll bring it in. Okay, so here we've got the full head shape, and that's all we really need at the moment. Let's get rid of the rest. Cool. So I'm going to put in a reference image. And I'm just going to keep this close by just as a reminder of what we're trying to create. So I'm going to keep the eyes and the mouth and the eyebrows visible, just because they'll give us some reference points as to where the hat should sit on the head. Nice. Okay, now the same as before, what we're going to do is we have all this loose geometry and all these triangles. What we want to do is change that, turn it back to quads. So let's come to our object data properties, clear custom split normals data, and then go to mesh, clean up, merge by distance. Okay, our last step, if you remember, is option J. Nice. And that will turn all the quads, all the triangles into quads. Unless it can't, because the angles are different. Okay, so now we've got our head and we can start to think about where are we gonna put our hat, right? So if I tab out and add some transparency to this image, we can bring it forwards and we can get a feel for how it's gonna sit on the avatar's head, how big it should be, how small, right? And we need to bear in mind also that this is a picture of just a hat, but the hat isn't on anyone's head, right? So we don't have that cranium shape underneath. So we're going to need to add that in and pull this top bit down. Okay, so let's just move that to the side for a bit. And I'm going to grab a ring of vertices around here. Nice. And I'm going to put them at the same height. Cool. So we've got this front bit, but now what I want to do is have the hat so it kind of comes to so it's lower at the back than it is at the front. Okay, and to do that we're going to connect this loop of vertices here with this one that goes down here, and then we'll pull it across here, if that makes sense. Okay. So seeing as we're going to do the same thing on both sides of the head, let's do it once, right? And then we can just symmetrize it and not have to do it twice and look for that identical symmetry. Not that faces are identical, but it will help a lot when it comes to weighting things to make them symmetrical. Nice. So now we've got the same head, but we can just work on one half and it will automatically show on the other half. You see? Cool. Okay, so this is about the height where I want the hat to end at the back. So these vertices are good. I'm going to mark a seam. And I like to do this just as a sketch method, just so that I know where I do want lines and where I don't want lines, basically. So I'm going to join these two vertices with J, and I'm going to add another seam. Okay, the seam isn't going to do anything other than affect our UV unwrapping, but we can modify that later. Okay, now we've got this, and remember this, let's put our seam at the front as well. Mark seam. Okay, so now we just need to connect this point with this point in the best possible, in the most kind of natural way. So let's join these two vertices and let's mark a seam there. And then we could follow this shape over the ear, which would probably be the easiest thing to do, but we're going to modify it a little bit With double G, you can just drag vertices within a mesh, and we'll just create something that's a bit more, it's a bit closer to what you might find in an actual hat, right? Don't know about you guys, but when I wear these hats, they come right down to my ears because I get really cold. So I'm gonna bring it all the way down here to the ears. Okay, so we're selecting our faces, all the faces that are above the seam line that we just marked. And now we're going to extrude them. Nice. So you get a little bit of volume around here. And we'll start to see how this is going to work. Okay, so you notice when we extruded out the center vertices, they didn't connect, did they? This has kind of created this whole other region here, which for our purposes we don't want. So let's turn on clipping in our mirror modifier. And we'll move the faces slightly on the x-axis until they snap together. And then we can scale them back on the x-axis to the point that we want. Cool, cool. Now at this point, I'm just going to add a different color to the hat that we're working on, just so that it's easier for us to see where we're at. So let's assign this. Nice. Okay, so we can see we do have a hat here, but it does not look anything like the kind of hat that we want to make yet. And that's totally fine. That's totally normal. It's part of the process. What I'm going to do here is just remove these extra vertices that were created via the mirror modifier. And to do that effectively, I do need to open up my numpad and go to Tool, Options, Auto Merge. And what this will do, make sure we don't have two vertices in the same place, and it will just combine them into one. So if I pull this back, GX -1, we can see that we're missing some width, we're missing some height, and we also need to make some kind of distinguishing mark to show this fold over that we have at the hat. So let's get into that. I'm going to grab the top 4, maybe 6, and pull them up. And to do that, I'm going to turn on proportional editing with O. Now we're just going to lift this up and try not to affect the head or the cranium, but we do want to affect the hat, right? So let's pull that up to a decent height. This is looking kind of funny right now. We want to pull these vertices back. Again, proportional editing is our friend to make everything seem organic. Okay, and we're starting to get there, but it's definitely not recognizable as a beanie just yet, but we'll get there. Let's pull these down, and we'll pull these back. Right, I don't know about you guys, but when I wear a beanie, like the top bit is kind of at the back. Does that make sense? The highest point, it kind of bends back. I have no idea if that makes sense. I'm just trying to remember the times I've worn a beanie and how it sits on your head. And just thinking like that will help you create something that looks more realistic. Okay, so let's just smooth a few vertices around here. How are we doing? Oh, we've got a nice little bump at the top here, which I don't really want. There we go, we're starting to look like a beanie now. And again, we've got a bump. I'm gonna check that all my normals are facing the right way. And I'm just gonna increase our smoothness a little bit. If we take a look at this, we don't have much space between the hat and the face, right? So if our avatar has hair, where is it, you know? So let's add some space for the hair. So again, I'm just going to select all of these without the face, and I want to have it so that it's kind of just it's just leaning over the ears a little bit, so it's just kind of keeping the tips of the ears nice and toasty. So let's scale on X, and we're going to turn off proportional editing because we don't want to be affecting the cranium at this point, which we actually are because we're moving these vertices here. So let's deselect those. And now we will scale on the X-axis until we get to that point where it's just kind of covering our ears a little bit, right? Nice. But now we're also going to need to compensate. We've only scaled on the X-axis. We also need to scale on the Y-axis. So let's do that. And it's starting to look like kind of more of a helmet, but we'll figure it out. It's all a process. Do not worry. Trust in the process. So let's turn back on proportional editing, and now we can give this some more height. How are we looking? Doesn't feel toasty just yet, does it? Kind of looks more like a military hat. Turn off proportional editing. Let's smooth these vertices, see what happens. Not exactly what we want, but that's helpful. Okay, and we have these here. We also want to smooth. Okay, we're getting closer, but we're not there yet. Let's bring back our reference image, gx-1, and see how we're doing. Our width is getting a bit better. We're still missing some height, but that's okay. Might add it here at the back, like we said. Turn on proportional editing for that. And let's just make it look like it's kind of an oversized hat that's just hanging at the back. Like your head's too small for the hat. That's how you know it's snuggly. Okay, this is starting to feel like more of a Christmas hat. Nice. Okay, so let's move this back to the side. And we're going to go through and add this section here where it's folded over. So I would normally just add a loop cut in here, but if we add in a loop cut, it's going to do all sorts of crazy things because we don't have a perfect quad mesh here. So let's fix that. These vertices are at pretty good height for what we want. Let's bring them down. We want them about this height, this one the same. I'll pull this one up as well, so it's about this height, and join these two vertices to make our loop cut. Let's make this one a bit higher as well. Okay, but now we need to compensate also for the fact that the hat is going down, so the fold will also be going down. Okay, so this is going to be our fold at the back. That will be our height at the back. So let's bring this up. Let's bring this up a little bit, but not all the way. And we're going to join it to this vertex. And this is going to be our line here. Okay, let's go through again and mark some seams just so that we can see better what it is we're doing. Okay, so if you can see, we've got a bit of a raggedy line here, but we can improve that. Let's go through and see where our major issues are. Okay, so let's smooth out these areas. And now we're going to grab these faces that we just created, and we're going to extrude them again. right? But the first thing I'm going to do is you'll notice that they start higher up than the base of the hat. Whereas here we've got things starting at the base of the hat. So I'm going to pull them down to this level. Nice. And then I'm going to extrude, but I'm going to extrude on every axis except for the Z axis, which is up. So S, Shift, Z. And now we can add our little hat bit here. Nice. Okay, so that's hella exaggerated, but it gives us an idea of what we're going for. Now let's do another scale, Shift, Z, and find the kind of amount that we're looking for. And now we can just tab in and adjust different vertices. I'm actually going to get rid of this one here because it's kind of in the way for us. And I'm going to push it back on the y-axis because this is too deep. Okay, let's do the same here at the front. Push it back on the y-axis, and here as well. Here we'll pull it to the side a bit, just with the y-axis, and then a little bit of the x, and back to the y-axis. Okay, let's get rid of this little guy here and this little guy here. Okay, we're starting to get somewhere. So let's pull these down a bit because it's a bit of a sharp angle compared to what we want. And to compensate, we're going to need to bring these down as well. And the same around here, seeing as we brought the ears down. We want to make sure it's more or less the same width. Okay, cool. So we could touch up this form for as long as you want, really. There is no end to it, but this is good enough for our demo. So let's move on to adding some hair, and then we will texture it. Cool. So there are a few ways we could add some hair to this model. We could import a pre-existing hair model from Wearables resources on the Decentraland docs, or we could create our own hair. Okay, so let's create our own hair. Let's start with just some little kind of shards that come down of hair. Scale them up. And remember, we're still working in symmetry, so all this is going to happen on both sides. Let's bring these two bits back to make it a bit thicker. And let's just line this up nice and neat. Cool. Okay, so let's have a little, got a little bit of hair there going into the eyes. Let's add some more hair. So I to inset, E to extrude, and then we can start shaping it. Let's add a little section down here. I to inset, E to extrude, and then we can shape it. Okay, so I'm doing a short hairstyle at the moment. We could do a long hairstyle, a short hairstyle, a pink hairstyle, anything you want, really. Completely up to you. Okay, let's add a few more around here. Again, inset, extrude, and then we can shape it. Okay, let's keep going around, and we'll do the whole ring of vertices down here. Okay, next one. We need to inset first. Or we don't need to, but it will help our model look a little bit more realistic. And by realistic, I don't mean photorealistic, I mean similar to life, the way things work in the world as we're used to it. Okay, let's leave that one shorter. I feel like we're leaving this person without any hair. We need hair all along here, but we'll pull those out in a second. So let's inset here, extrude, and pull it down a bit, and a bit more. Okay, one last one up here. Let's inset and extrude. Okay, nice. So now we have a hat, we have hair, but we have one thing that we don't need, and that's the head. We don't want the head to be part of our wearable, right? We want people to be able to customize their own head. So we're gonna delete the head completely. Before we do that, let's make sure we've selected all the hair that we just created. And we're going to give that a separate material, which will help us differentiate it from the rest of the head. So for now, let's make all of this gray. Okay, so let's set this to gray. And let's just double check that we grabbed everything we wanted to grab. We do want to add, we want this to be gray as well, because if not, it looks like we're missing a section of hair. Let's just make it a bit more gentle. Nice, and we will, yeah, let's just join these two vertices and make this gray also, just so we've got a nice smoother finish. Let's wiggle these about a bit, make it a little bit more organic. Okay, so now if we select everything that's avatar skin and delete it, we will lose some hair. So let's just double check that these hair bits are all belonging to our gray material like we want. We can delete this, and we're left with a hat and some hair. Nice. Okay, so the next thing we're going to want to do is seal up this hat, just to avoid any issues in the future. There are any clipping issues, we don't want it to be looking funny. Okay, so let's just fill this up. Okay, Shift N, check our normals. And we'll just join this in the best way we can. There we go. Okay, that should do it. So let's create a new group here, and we'll do this. We'll call this our F avatar, and put all of this in here. And we'll create another group for our M avatar. Nice. Let's hide our F avatar for now, and we'll import the male avatar. Cool. So let's see if our hat works on the guy. Lo and behold, seems to be working pretty solid. Nice. So that means we don't need to create two different items. Okay, so now we can work on our shading. We've got our hat ready. We've got our hair ready. So what do we need to know? Our hair is always going to have a specific texture and material, which you'll notice if you download any of the pre-made hairstyles. So if we come to our wearable reference models and we look for some examples, let's look for a hair example, and let's pull in male. Okay, let's download the GLB here. Okay, download. Nice. Now let's import this to Blender. Okay, and I'm just going to move this to the side because we're not going to use it. GX1. Cool. And let's hide our reference image for now. Now if we look at the materials here, we have hair matte. Now what does that look like in UV editing? Well, it's the same palette that we use for clothes and other items in Decentraland. It's preloaded into the engine, which makes it faster to load. And you'll notice that almost all of the hair is mapped to these different tones of gray on this texture atlas here. So if you want the hair to be darker by default, you can give it a darker gray. And if you want it to be lighter by default, you can give it a lighter gray. Remember, all this is going to be tinted in the builder, in the wearable editor. So let's do the same thing with our hair here. Let's go through and select all our hair bits. Cool, so what we've got selected now is the hair. So let's go in and add a new material, and we could directly import the hair material from the model that we just brought in. So let's assign the hair material to this, and not to worry, this is because our UV map isn't so neat. This is what our UV map looks like at the moment, and it's super easy to fix that. So let's open up our palette, which is here, and quite simply we're going to select all this in here, and we're going to scale it down nice and tiny and stick it over one of the grays. Great. So that's our hairstyle sorted, hair matte, nice. Our cap texture, we can change that, can't we? And we can also remove the skin texture because now we have no areas of skin visible in our wearable. As you know, we can only have a maximum of 2 textures per item, so removing that skin texture is going to be vital so that we can have another texture to apply to our hat. So we could map the hat to the texture palette that we have. We could make it any color, we could add some stripes, some dots, whatever you want. In this case, I want to use a custom texture to create a low poly models hat to keep your ears warm in the winter. So we're going to import that image texture, which we have prepared already. It is 256 by 256 pixels, which is one of the sizes that we can use in Decentraland. So let's go ahead and import that. Let's just add a loop here. Okay, so let's go into shading mode and we'll select our gray material. Okay, so we'll pull in our custom texture. We can maximize this again. And we're going to connect color with base color. Pull down our specularity and increase our roughness. This is just personal taste. You do not have to do that at all. And go back to UV editing. Open up this new image that we've just added. which is down here. And now we can look into unwrapping it. So at the moment, everything is just being mapped in this tiny little dot right here. But I actually want to show the cat at the front or the back of the cap. I haven't decided. So let's project from view and make that a bit bigger. See, that's gonna work, but we're just gonna have this one glass replicated on both sides because we've still got the mirror modifier applied. I'll go to my modifiers and apply the mirror modifier. Now I can unwrap it, project from view, and now we can grab the whole cat. There we go. Nice. So we could have him at the top here. We have loads of them everywhere. I think we just want to have it on the border here. So let me show you what I mean by that. Thinking, what if we have it, let's see, either center or slightly off center. So we just grab those two and we can scale them here in our UV editor. And get our kitty cat just there. Okay, so that's one option. Or we can go back a few steps. We can try putting it off center. See if that looks any better. It's okay, but again, because the quads are leaning, we're getting some stretching going on here. So I'm going to go back to that original pose we had here at the front. Looked pretty good. Nice. I'm going to leave it like that and export what we have. And let's try it in the builder. So to do that, we're going to double check our weight painting first, as always. The same as with the baseball hat, we want everything to be parented to the head bone with no influence from any other bones whatsoever. Let's go into solid shading mode and we'll select our armature followed by our model and go into weight paint mode. Great. So here we can see where we've added some geometry or where we've changed it. We don't have full weighting to the head bone, which is what we want. And we have some additional weighting to the neck bone, which we really don't want. Okay, so we want everything to be red up here, everything blue with this, and every single other bone. Okay, so let's remove all the influences from the neck bone. Nice easy way to do that is select all the vertices with A, come to our object data properties, and we'll just simply assign a weight of 0 to that bone. Okay, now let's come out of vertex mode. We'll go to the head bone, go back into vertex mode. Again, with all our vertices selected, we're going to assign a weight of 1 to all of them. Nice. So now if we move our head bone, that should move the head. The neck bone will move the head, but it's not going to do anything else. And nothing else is having any influence on the head whatsoever. Nice, that's just what we want. So now we can select the model and then the armature second, and go File, Export, Export as GLB or GLTF. And let's call this a Beanie demo. And we're going to include the same options as before. So limit to selected objects, transform +Y up, geometry, apply modifiers. Like I said, we can check this or not check this, it will make no difference. We need UVs, we need normals, and we need vertex colors, nothing else. As for animation, we don't want animation, we don't want shape keys, but we do need skinning, okay? That controls how the wearable moves with the armature. Now that that's set up and we've got our name, let's export it. And let's try importing it into the builder. Okay, so let's add a new item to this collection that we already made. Now we can drag and drop our new model into here, create a new item. So, like we said, this is going to be a unisex item, so both. Select a rarity, let's go for unique just because, and we're gonna call it a hat because it is a hat, and create. Cool. So let's click on edit and we can see our hat here in the wearables editor. Cool, so we have our hat. It's looking a bit funny. Why is that? Because we need to hide the original hair that comes with the avatar. So let's come here to overrides and choose hides hair. Save. Okay, so now we're just showing the new hair that we created, and we can change the color of that hair thanks to the tints. So we can have some red hair, we can have nice dark hair, we could have light hair, and I'm really hoping they're gonna add some crazy colors here soon because, I mean, we need green hair, we need purple hair, just my personal opinion. Anyway, so that's working. Let's see if you can give us a wave or something. Nice. Let's see if it works on a different avatar shape. Cool. Again, we can change the hair color. Okay, so if we wanted to test this out in world, we would do the same as before. Go into our collection, click on the 3 dots and choose See in World. At this point, we're going to need to change our digital wallet from the Ethereum network to Ropsten. So let's do that here and reload. Okay, cool. We've got our avatar here again in the test network. Let's head into our backpack and try on that beanie. So accessories, hat, and let's stick it on. Okay, we've got our beanie on. Let's see if it follows the armature skeleton as we walk around. Yep, looking pretty good. Slow it down a bit. Let's try out some emotes. Nice. Now let's try and see if we can alter the hair color. So if we come to head here, hair, we've got different tones that we can select here. And because we mapped our hair to the grayscale, we will have this color coming through and that will tint the gray that we chose. So this is pretty cool, and hopefully we'll have some more colors here in the future, maybe some crazy hair colors would be fun. But yeah, this is cool because people can customize the way it looks. And let's see how it looks on a different body shape. Let's go into accessories, stick on our beanie. Looking good. So that's how you make a hat and a beanie for Decentraland. I hope that was helpful. If you have any other questions, feel free to get in touch via Discord or our website, Low Poly Models World. And yeah, let's keep making amazing things for the metaverse, for Decentraland, because yeah, we've got a lot ahead of us.